To gaze into the warp is to look into the abyss. To understand insanity itself is to become insane. Worst of all is the knowledge that while you are gazing upon it, the warp is looking back at you and laughing. The Imperium of Man embarks upon perilous campaigns of untold horrors with each passing day. Duty-bound to fell the malevolent paws of Heresy, billions of souls journey the length and breadth of the galaxy to bring the Emperor's light to the wicked. Yet regardless of its raw strength, humanity's war machine requires souls of unique talent to facilitate its crusades. For a weapon without a target is as ineffective as without a hand to wield it. For today, we shall elucidate the wayfarers of the void, descended from genetically Puritan nobility, who mark the trajectory of the Imperium's campaigns. The Navigator aristocracy, the Navis Nobilite. While many believe the Imperium to be the longest-standing governance of humanity, while it is true that it is the largest, a rare few organizations exceed even the tenure of the Emperor's regime. Ensconced by the genetic mutation which binds them, the Navigator gene, the bloodline of this human subspecies has accrued vast political power for untold millennia. Establishing guilds exempt from the laws of the Imperium of Man, these overwhelmingly privileged souls know all too well their value to the most influential branches of humanity's rule and demand ample payment for their service. Not beyond the reproach of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition by any stretch of the imagination, each Inquisitor must nonetheless step lightly when dealing with these aristocratic inbreds, as even their own Voidcraft must harbor such individuals to brave the warp. Prideful of their vast influence, the Navigator caste takes steps to self-police their orders to prevent shame tarnishing their households. Their ties to the Immaterium, encouraging superstitious beliefs to burgeon which intertwine with notions of otherworldly consequences. Retaining the purity of their bloodline through interbreeding, the possibility of mingling with unmutated humans incurs the risk that their offspring shall be born without the gifts which elevate them above humanity's rabble. Forming alliances with other clans and houses through arranged marriages, economic and political rivalries rarely escalate into hostilities due to the ever-increasing monopolies of the largest houses. The immense wealth and influence of each house, bolstered by ancient treaties made through interstellar trade, it is by no means uncommon for bloodlines to pledge fealty to military bodies such as Navis Imperialis fleets, Space Marine chapters, and even rogue traders in exchange for protection. Endorsed by the Master of Mankind during the era of the Great Crusade to enable his vast armies to conquer the stars, the authority of the Navis Nobilite is rarely called into question by the Adeptus Terra, with the exception of treacherous acts made against the Imperium. Each clan typically guarded by a retainer of thousands of bodyguards under the guidance of their ruling monarch, the Paternova. Each Navigator House's Novator employs specialists to monitor their fiefdoms for signs of betrayal or usurpation. At great pains to cultivate high birth rates of children bearing the Navigator gene, each house must be vigilant to compete against the constant acts of genetic tampering made by rival houses as each bloodline attempts to breed more gifted and well-trained children. Competing to earn the notice of the most powerful governing bodies of the Imperium for contracts to dispatch their kinsmen to the most lucrative postings, though the hierarchy of the major houses holds the most pedigree, should a minor house breed greater stock of the bloodlines, a chance for the elevation of their fortunes could threaten their betters. Overtly regarded as mutants and witches, the Navis Nobilite, nevertheless, live as a protected class among the rank and file of the Imperium. For it is among the most ironic hypocrisies that even the most pious servants of the Emperor, such as the Black Templars, must regardless harbor such unclean souls within their midst to ensure their function. Shunned and feared in equal measure by the general public, the malformations and mental abnormalities incurred from inbreeding and warp exposure does not allay the ire of the subjects of the Imperium. Regularly screening their families for optimal balance of mutation compatibility, those chosen for marriage are divined through both the Emperor's Tarot and Gene Squire specialists to prevent the warp's interference from tainting their decisions. The lesser houses, struggling to pay the cost of such luxuries, resulting in increasing instability within their bloodlines. Genetic corruption has on more than one occasion resulted in the dissolution of a Navigator house and purge of its members. Typically enacted by members of the ecclesiarchy, the Adeptus Ministorum is quick to burn navigators as heretics, should even a slight hint of treachery be uncovered. The rampant zeal of the Emperor's Church, curtailed by the High Lords of Terror swiftly to prevent tensions from escalating further. The worst offenders of such heresy, captured by agents of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition, the Holy Ordos in extreme cases shall destroy Navigator clans before sending their patriarchs and matriarchs to the Black Ships as an act of judgment. To ensure a strict hierarchy of rule is enforced by the Navis Nobilite, several rituals and customs are utilized by its myriad houses. Some bloodlines such as House Belisarius adopt unique titles such as Celestarch, which is conferred onto members of the Space Wolves chapter of Astartes, who stand as bodyguards in their retinue, whilst other monikers are more widespread. At the height of the Nobilite's power base stands the Paternova, the unifying force of every house of the Navigator Creed, destined never to leave the Palace of Navigators upon his or her appointment. Employing a chief member of their house to act as the Paternoval envoy who serves as a member of the High Lords of Terror, such an appointed family member represents the Navis Nobilite's interests within the Senatorum Imperialis. Amplifying the warp sense of their subjects due to the extreme mutations which all Paternovas must possess from their induction from the heirs apparent, their link to the junior members of the Nobilite is keenly felt during the transfer of the position, as all suffer a noticeable diminishing of their power until a new Paternova is appointed. Capable of living for up to 1,000 years of service, the Paternova is always drawn from the most influential great families, their ascension benefiting their household with a substantial enhancement of their abilities, thanks to their genetic ties, as the former Paternova's family weakens. The death of such a ruler, causing the reserve of heirs apparent to drastically metamorphose into larger, stronger, and more psychically powerful subjects, with the void left from their passing. Able to survive in the vacuum of space, underwater, and to endure a variety of poisonous concoctions, the heirs apparent slay one another until only one remains, many scholars being thankful that no records can be found to identify what form such a monstrous being may inhabit. Elected Novators stand as the rulers of each individual house, regardless of their standing as a patriarch or matriarch, responsible for managing their bloodline's finances, political agenda, and economic endeavors. Guiding the destiny of their household, typically from their throne room within Terra's Palace of the Navigators, the fickle ebb and flow of power within the Nobilite requires constant monitoring using encrypted communication chambers known as the Novator Cortex. Confined to luxurious isolation as a result of their often unsightly mutations, their age and experience are pivotal in discerning the best alliances, quelling trade disputes, and ensuring the peaceful rule of the Nobilite. The Navis Scions represent the Navis Nobilite during protocols of bureaucracy, selected from those with few outward signs of mutation to converse with political elites during courtly gatherings and matters of governance. Always the focal point of intrigue and scandal, the Navis Scions revel in both the renown and infamy they accrue as they regale the crowds with tales of travel, wit, and monarchic intrigue. Representing their households as advisors to rogue traders, navy admirals, and imperial nobles, the Navis Scions broker alliances with powerful organizations. Their short-lived attractiveness often prolonged by extensive surgeries used to propagandize the misrepresentation that reports of their disfigured brethren bear no credence, as they too slowly adopt the features of their less fortunate kinsmen. Beyond reproach in their authority over their subjects, it is an act of treason to oppose the will of the Novator, and those who stand in opposition to their will shall incur reprisal given sanction by the military branches of the Imperium. Preferring to combat their rivals in wars of trade rather than bloodshed, the houses of the Nobilite endorse acts of assassination, espionage, and commerce interference to gain the upper hand against their rivals, causing massive structural damage to the infrastructure of the Imperium whilst evading the notice of Imperial authorities. To prevent retaliation, Novators shall declare their houses to be conducting trade wars which comply to the terms of the ancient Navigator Convention Pact formed with the Imperium, allowing for any and all covert and military measures to ensure its conclusion, so long as subjects outside the influence of the Nobility remain unaffected. Imperial authorities allow such acts of infighting to continue, despite their inevitable contravention of such promises. Hiring mercenary armies comprised of Xenos such as Orcs and Kroot, should a trade war escalate to a fever pitch. Though technically legal as outlined by the Navigator Convention, should such extreme measures be forthcoming, Imperial authorities cannot turn a blind eye to such violence. Guarding their archives of charts, outlining safe travel routes through the warp from their enemies, should such invaluable resources be stolen or copied, the core of a house's influence shall be diminished. Hiring private armies and an array of security measures to protect such records, within the labyrinthine depths of each house's headquarters, a veritable bounty of wealth is ripe for the plunder to any daring enough to attempt to seize it. More trivial breaches of honor between house members, often incited by gossip of little substance, which circulates the higher echelons of Imperial society. Refusing to allow for such wanton lies to go unchecked, Navigators are quick to defend the reputation of their house and challenge any and all fabricators of such vitriol to martial bouts. Formally challenging their opponents in public, it is a sign of weakness to back down once called to task, each party appointing a chosen champion to fight in their stead as a second individual acts as witness to the outcome. Often conducted within abandoned hive spires, empty voidcraft, or desolate landscapes to prevent damage to innocent bystanders, the resultant loser of the duel is expected to surrender money, resources, and even knowledge to the victor. Bowing and uncovering their third eye before conducting the duelist shall not battle with blades, but the unflinching gaze of their warp eye, ignoring the temptations of chaos entities as they attempt to submit their rival with their stare for mere seconds or even hours, rarely resulting in death due to the innate value of a navigator's life. Such duels regardless require solar months to recover from for both parties involved, always ending in a feast for the winner, made to honor their house's victory. The loser of the encounter signs over compensation as they endure the shame of their loss in the presence of their betters. Though the mutation of the Navigator gene is regarded as stable in its integration with its host, the common folk of the Imperium nonetheless regard Navigators as having sin in the blood. Each physical aberration to their flesh further compounding the infamy with which outsiders perceive them. Though the most genetically pure stock of larger houses resist the worst malformations, none are exempt from the stain of mutation. Most prominent of their disfigurements is their warp eye set upon their foreheads, a clear sign of their creed which must be covered at all times to prevent its potent gaze from harming civilians. Their translucent skin, large irisless eyes, and lanky appearance, seen as unsightly to all societies of humanity, their webbed appendages and visible arteries further compound such disgust felt by the wider populace. Less uncommon mutations, such as needle-pointed teeth, claw-like fingers, and bulbous torsos, mitigated by comparatively useful mutations, such as regenerative healing and low-light vision capabilities, the gene scryers of the Nobility work diligently to ascertain the many traits each newborn shall inherit. In extreme cases, culling babies with unsightly mutations to prevent contamination of their bloodlines, each house must be vigilant to prevent investigations by the Ordo Hereticus of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition. Their third eye, the most manifestly useful mutation available to their creed. On rare occasions, some navigators require the fitting of cybernetic shutter implants upon their brows to prevent their innate powers causing harm. Linking their minds to the Immaterium and allowing them to gaze into the tumultuous tides of the warp. As each navigator ages, their otherwise human-appearing third eye shall transform into a solid black sphere, the lids of their third eye on occasion receding to the point of disappearing entirely. Even should the host of such a mutation perish, this potent link to the realm of chaos can erode the mental sanity of those who carelessly gaze into its depths. Capable of perceiving not only safe routes through the warp, but also piercing material barriers and even the amorphic souls of sentience, so powerful is this otherworldly iris that when fully opened, it can extinguish the very essence of a mortal being from their body. Kept isolated from the populace of the Imperium for this very reason, it is no wonder why the common folk of the Imperium distrust the Navigators to the extent which they do, their shrouded appearance eliciting feelings of distrust, whilst their reputation tells of witches capable of killing a man with a glance. Developing the power of their third eye by studying the teachings of their heir apparent, the most capable navigators are said to be able to see visions of the future, with many speculating that their overlord, the Paternova, is the most capable of such a feat. Reliant on the Emperor's Astronomicon beacon to gather bearings of their surroundings. When cut off from the light of the Master of Mankind, the Navigators suffer terribly, resulting in the protraction of campaigns, such as was evident during the Macarian Crusade of 392.M41. Avoiding all strongholds of chaos, such as the Eye of Terror when possible, the Navis Nobilite steers clear from all such crucibles of madness and plot courses to best evade such tears in reality for the sake of their own sanity. Capable of a variety of powers due to their innate connection to the warp, an exhaustive list of such abilities are as follows. The Ether Doldrum ability allows for their location of a point of calm within the tides of the warp, also capable of being harnessed to dampen psychic powers and banish demons back over the threshold from whence they came. The Baleful Watcher, or Piercing Gaze, allows navigators to push through warp currents to identify safe travel routes, though should it be turned on mortal souls, they can extract useful knowledge from their victims, ripped from their very souls. Capable of hiding their presence within the Immaterium, using the technique, A Cloud in the Warp, agents of the ruinous power struggle to track navigators when entrenched in the material realm, as they hide their warp presence from their aggressors, with mastery allowing them to mask others within their presence. Manipulating the Immaterium to form localized warp storms by disrupting the Imperium, navigators can block Voidcraft from entering or exiting real space. Using divination in conjunction with the Emperor's Tarot, some talented nobles can see into the future in a far safer manner than precognition derived from peering directly into the warp. Further manipulating time through ebb and flow techniques of perception, navigators strip away the facade of events to slow the blade of an attacker or even projectiles of a ranged weapon, allowing for safe evasion. Reserving the power of their evil eye for only the most hated foe, navigators siphon power from the spirits of the warp to cast a hex on their enemies, which will in time turn their allies against them. The Eye of Oblivion allows a navigator to perceive the link between a mortal form and its soul, cutting at the tethers between animating force and mortal frame to immobilize, if not kill outright. Retrieving fragments of the future using their foreshadowing ability of their third eye, navigators can glean crucial insight into future events at the risk of losing themselves to the influence of the warp. Their gaze into the abyss, allowing navigators to clearly identify psychers and demons within the material universe, tracking the residual psychic taint which trails from the host to objects leading to their charge. When navigators choose to have a mortal held in their gaze, such subjects can be immobilized as their joints and muscles lock into place, this power sharing similarity to that used by psychers, who can replicate the same effect through different means. Capable of immolating the soul of their enemies by focusing the raw power of the Immaterium through their warp eye, rumors persist that such a power is derived from the Emperor, as the more morally corrupt the victim, the quicker and more savagely they shall combust into flames. The Inward View meditation allows navigators to uncover hidden knowledge, the most pious of the Navis Nobilite collaborating with Reclusium chapels in their efforts to learn long-forgotten philosophical teachings earned through continual introspection. Mind shielding, harnessed through the use of a cerebrum cowl, protects navigators from the psychic influence of the Immaterium, the ancient archaeotech capable of staving off the most dangerous threats to the mind. The physically exhausting obliterating of the immaterial wake, typically utilized through a Voidcraft's warp veins, allows a vessel harboring a navigator to hide the trail left in its wake during traversal through the warp, to prevent tracking by enemy combatants. Slowing the effect of immaterial interlopers using the Pass Unscathed technique, navigators protect themselves and their allies from the insidious touch of chaos when in close proximity to its presence. Able to refresh and revitalize themselves by virtue of their genetic heritage, navigators, despite staying immobile for long shifts within their station for solar days, can forestall their fatigue, yet must rest after such an endeavor to prevent falling into a comatose state. The Scourge of the Red Tide power allows for navigators to project raw warp essence from their eye in a torrent of warp fire, searing flesh from bone as the victim's soul is consumed by the barrage, yet is only used as a last resort due to the strain incurred from such an act. Using their technique known as Seek the Path, navigators assess their environment through the lens of the Immaterium and find opportunities to evade and strike optimally against martial foes. Stacking the deck is a technique which draws from their otherwise meager naval combat training, using their perception of future events to optimally position their naval vessel and firing lines to achieve tactical advantage before battle has even been joined. Stripping the Husk is a power which uses a fast blink of their warp eye to project a sudden blast of energy to cleave their enemies in twain, often reducing their opponent to mere piles of steaming flesh and bone. Their ability to stupefy the soul stuns aggressors by partially opening their warp eye to briefly shock any living being. Should circumstance require, the Navigator shall press their brief attack to induce sudden mental breakdowns, as the malevolent power of the warp erodes their victim's sanity. The color Untraveled is an ability wherein a Navigator manipulates the web of fate to their advantage, altering their position in the physical world at the risk of extreme damage to their bodies, as they will themselves into a position of an alternate future. The Lidless Stare, among the most dangerous abilities of a Navigator. By fully opening the gaze of their warp eye, those who stare into its depths witness the undiluted, mind-shattering unreality of the warp, which overwhelmingly results in death. The Warp Unbound, pioneered by the Elutrian Confederacy, allows a Navigator to peer into the minds of psychers, flooding their psyche with the energies of the Imperium as they succumb to its overwhelming power. The Tides of Time and Space practice allows Navigators to sidestep causality by slipping between realities, its intended use to anticipate future events whilst evading present ones, imperiling both the manipulator and those in their presence should they lose control. Capable of tracking faster-than-light vessels as they track in the stars, Navigators can identify the faint trail left by a Voidcraft's warp drive emanations. The Visions of Hell, bearing similarity to the Lidless Stare power, those who prefer more subtle arts to bring more stubborn and righteous souls to heal, force them to plead for a release from the fell experience they have endured. Assuming the role of a Void Watcher, when stationed on starships, vigilant Navigators watch for hidden threats such as void mines, debris fields, and concealed voidcraft from as far as millions of kilometers of space. Acting as a means to harbor beleaguered forces from peril during the height of void warfare engagements, Navigators assume their warp vigil to communicate to allies impending threats, as well as opportune strikes to conduct before their enemies can react. Though one power above all is regarded as heretical among even the ranks of the Navis Nobilite, corrupting the flesh, an ability used exclusively by renegade or shrouded houses, which allows for its members to drown their enemies in warp essence to induce spontaneous mutations wrought from excruciating pain and malice. Protective of the records of their early history, little is known of the origins of the Navis Nobilite, save for their crucial role in allowing humanity to embark across the stars. All that bears credence during the 41st millennium is that their history remains under lock and key within the Navigator's Quarter of Terror, the unimaginable treasures harbored within, rivaling even that of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition. The thousands of houses under the dominion of the Paternova, rivaling the power and influence of even the Adeptus Administratum. Such bloodlines are divided into magisterial, nomadic, renegade, and shrouded houses. Magisterial houses descend from the dynasty of the original Navigator families, hearkening to the era of the Unification Wars, their pedigree unmatched by virtue of their immense wealth and largest holdings within the Navigator Quarter. Nomadic houses have relinquished their ties to the star systems of their origin and now roam the void as wanderers, abandoning their domains within the Navigator Quarter as their vast starships house among the most experienced wayfarers of the Navis Nobilite. Shrouded houses lurk among the fringes of known space to mark their shame, greedily clutching at the smallest fragments of power remaining to them. These beggar houses, as they are regarded by their peers, are often the result of sundered bloodlines who develop a cunning resourcefulness as a means to compensate for their shortcomings. Renegade houses have forsaken the creed of the Navis Nobilite by veering too close to the influence of chaos. They're vying for power whilst imbuing their offspring with radical and potent mutations, nonetheless forsaking them from the light of the Emperor. Among the mightiest of individual houses, many stand as exemplars of their former glory prior to the era of the Great Civil War for humanity, their pedigree bolstered by alliances to powerful Imperial institutions. Magisterial houses, such as House Akeliu, are glorified for their appointment by the Emperor to research the mysterious dark glass archaeotechnology, whilst House Larix Nor allies closely with the Adeptus Mechanicus and benefits from their technological brilliance. House Numa integrate with the Terran nobility for political power, whilst House Vishta maintain holdings throughout the Koronus expanse, trading their vast wealth with rogue traders to expand their astropathic data. House Belivolio are vaunted for their service shepherding Lord Solar Macarius' flagship through the warp throughout his legendary crusade, whilst House Belisarius benefit from close ties to the Space Wolf chapter of Astartes, and for their exclusive pledge of Navigators are in turn protected by Wolfblade bodyguards, drawn from among the fiercest warriors known to man. Nomadic houses, such as House Eline, are regarded as among the greatest pathfinders of the Calixus sector, whilst House Barbazon's once proud reputation as the far-ranging masters of the Segmentum Obscurus now despair at the corruption of much of their priceless star charts. Some shrouded houses have retained a noble reputation and earned great distinction, such as House Modor, Yeshar, and Dreanor for their service during the Angevin Crusade. Yet House Malaspina are not permitted to serve within any voidcraft of the first nor second founding chapters of the Adeptus Astartes due to an unknown grievance, and House Mercator have for millennia been regarded as cursed due to their allies often befalling ignominious fates. Renegade houses such as House Dakar have come into direct conflict with the Paternova of the Navis Nobilite, incurring the wrath of Saint Drusus of the Astra Militarum, whilst houses such as Darcel openly ally with Chaos Cultists of the Cyclopean Congregation, leading to their status as excommunicate traitoris. Whatever their allegiance, each house of the Navis Nobilite act as financiers to a myriad of endeavors across the stars, funding rogue trader expeditions, imperial crusades, and even heretic insurrections should their power base stand to gain more wealth or influence, establishing new warp routes in exchange for monetary compensation. With the opening of the Great Rift across the stars, the need for navigators has never been in higher demand. Working from the shadows due to their lack of established fleets, industrial factories, or trade outposts, the Navis Nobilite use an extensive array of intermediaries to bring their plans to fruition. Heavily reliant on mercenary force to enact their more unsubtle ambitions, from the gaudy estates and resplendently decadent palaces of each noble house, the Navigator elite weave a web of schemes to achieve their ambitions. The flawed spawn of their bloodlines, unfit for service among the starships of the Sea of Souls or regal ballrooms of high society, locked away in dungeons deep below their palaces. These feral and hideous products of inbreeding between these licentious aristocrats belie the necessary evil which they represent.
They hide a darkness in their souls far more repulsive than any warping of flesh or disfigurement of limb. Would that they weren't quite so useful, then we could burn the lot of them.
This has been a tale of the great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. To gaze into the depths of untold horrors is a responsibility too great for most to bear. Forced to endure misery unleashed by otherworldly beings of limitless malevolence, though the Navis Nobilite benefit from vast wealth, they are nonetheless destined to live a miserable existence. None can choose the origins of their birth, nor the traits and benefits they shall inherit. All that can be done is utilize such resources to benefit humanity. For the most noble legacies are not defined by birthright nor influence, but by the strides made to create a better future for those who you shall never live to see prosper.